We had a preferable plan, however, and that is that we be given a long-term access to money that is generated in the cities. The sales tax of 6% is generated in each of the communities in California, and yet we get only 1 cent of that money. And so we were suggesting that there be a redistribution, not an increase in the sales tax, but a redistribution of that existing 6 cents, so that the cities would get an additional cent, and that would of course be shared with the counties. So essentially we would get 80% of that increase. I consider that remaining 1 cent as a I'll be glad to answer questions. I understand you want some brief statement of what happened yesterday, so I'll do that and then. Yesterday in Sacramento, the board of directors of the policy request for the legislature and the governor. And then as vice chairman of the League of California Cities and vice chairman of our task force, which has been working for the past 2 years on property tax relief with the legislature, I and Rex Clark, the chairman of that committee, spoke first with Governor Brown, laid out our proposals, which were essentially that we believe the cities of California are entitled to their pro rata share of the remaining property tax money that was made available by the passage of Proposition 13. Secondly, that we believe the cities of California ought to share in the surplus. We believe that in order to maintain the level of services in any reasonable level, we must have some additional help. And we told them that our police services, fire services, recreation and parks, libraries, every department of city government would be affected. And in order to minimize that impact, we felt we should get some of that surplus in order to generate greater equity. And finally, we urged that there be a loan fund, as suggested by Governor Brown, that would make it possible for some cities in the state which have cash flow problems to meet their emergency needs. The reaction of the governor was that he had essentially proposed those very things. He believes that we ought to share in the property tax that is available. And secondly, that we ought to share in the surplus. And he has proposed that we get $400 million of that money. He did not react one way or the other to the sales tax idea. And very frankly, it was so newly proposed that we didn't expect any immediate response, negative or positive. We simply wanted them to consider that in the whole range of things that they would have to look at. We then met with the President Pro Tem of the Senate, Jim Mills, and with the chairman of the local government committee, Milton Marks of San Francisco. We laid out the same agenda to them. They were receptive to the idea, but of course did not make any commitments to us in one way or the other. I met separately with the Democratic caucus of the Assembly to express some concern about words that had come to us to the effect that that body had indicated that they did not believe that the cities should get any part of the property tax that remains. And they quickly said that they wanted to put those fears to rest, that there had been some preliminary discussion about that matter, but everything was so fluid at this point that we should not be overly concerned about any statement that had been made a week ago or 2 weeks ago on that issue. which has responsibility for reviewing all of these recommendations and then reporting to both houses of the legislature.
Do you feel somewhat relieved? I know you have said about something.
Entitlement by right. And I can tell you that everyone had counted on it. And what we were saying in very strong terms is that we believe we're entitled to it, and we simply want to suggest that the file that is before it. When they act, and it comes to me, I will then review that file and take action as quickly as possible.
Mayor Bradley, back to the 1 cent $1 billion. And that would be maybe about half of your budget shortfall, and would certainly allow you, for example, not to lay off any police officers, among other things. That much money. Is that
Out the mailing to their membership, and we're awaiting the return of those cards. So until they get an answer, it would not be productive for us to meet again. I'm sure that we'll have further discussions after that.
Do you have any feeling about how other city unions feel about